Patty, will you recognize her phone number?
No, but I will text her and tell her to let me know when she's in.
Okay. Yeah, we can pause for a minute and see until she gets back, because I don't want to be responsible for the notes. That won't be good for anybody. And I guess, Ann, I'm not sure when Sandy dropped, but if you wouldn't mind shooting her an email with those corrections,
Yes,
assuming the motion passes, that would be great.
thank you.
Did we get a second on the amended motion yet?
I'll second.
Great.
Sandy's all set. Thanks.
Okay, great. So Gene, do you have any corrections for the minutes? All right, then we'll go ahead and call the question on a roll call vote to approve with the amendments discussed. The minutes of October 20th, 2020, October 27th, 2020, and November 5, 2020. April.
Yes.
Gene?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 3, immediate business. Letter A is public comment. So quick spiel in case you haven't joined us before. The way we'll do this is there should be a raise hand button on your screen somewhere if you're on the computer. If you've got something you'd like to contribute to public comment, go ahead and press that raise hand button when you find it. And Patty or Mr. Morris, one of the two, will go through and recognize you to speak. When we're done going through the hands or we're getting close to the 15-minute time limit, we will switch over to the phone lines. That's a little more complicated. We'll open a group of those at a time and ask if anybody that's unmuted has anything they would like to contribute, and we'll go from there. We do have a 3-minute time limit. I'll ask people to be brief if possible so that we can hear from as many people as we can. I'll keep the time. My phone actually has some battery tonight. And I think that's it. So if we've got any hands, we can get started.
Sarah Peterson.
All right, Sarah.
Hi, I'm not Sarah Peterson's. She is a wonderful person, though. No, my name's Matt Peterson's from 48 Bow Lane. And I just had sort of 2 considerations as you start to go into the conversation tonight about possible remote or moving to remote, or what that model decision would look like. One is that way back in the day, feels like years ago, as months ago, there was a decision made by the school board that the teachers needed to remain in the school in order to do the synchronous learning and the live classroom. I just would ask that the board revisit that question and allow the teachers the opportunity just to work from home, just like many of us still have the opportunity to do. Certainly save preparation time. It could save organization time, and it wouldn't be such a burden on the school system's Wi-Fi and that particular system. That, although when I have seen remote learning happening and synchronous learning happening, things have been great. So I certainly applaud the facilities maneuvers that were made to make that happen. But if that can be considered, that'd be excellent. The second is just in line with either, I think, what many other school districts are doing, including Concord, I believe, that we would remain hybrid and through the start of winter break until winter break, and then we would have 2 weeks of full remote from the end of winter break through the first 2 weeks of the term. This would allow for a couple of different things to happen. One, the consistency of what we've been working through so far, and then it would also allow for transition back into the spring term. And And I believe this is the direction that either Concord is headed or is heading, which would also put PA students who go to the Concord Tech in line with their curriculum and in remote and in classroom days as well. So if those two considerations can be discussed and considered, that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Tim Berardi.
Go ahead, Tim.
Hey, everyone. Just wanted to connect and talk a little bit about the remote learning. So what I have to say is what I'd like to see happen is that the remote learning that my kids and several kids have experienced over the past couple of weeks due to quarantining be the standard for what we do in off days in the classroom. I think that we have to figure out a way to make that work. We have the ability to expand and potentially, I would hope, have more teachers taking on that role and letting that be giving us a complete package, I would say, in terms of how the kids can learn in a hybrid fashion. I've been very clear before that I think that the asynchronous day is frankly a waste for the kids. I don't think that they really get what they need in the classroom. And this is not just myself, it's me talking with other parents. What I'd also say is, based on the decision that's made in terms of going remote or not, based on the holidays, if we don't come out of that period, whether it's hybrid, remote, whatever the decision is, with a full plan that's baked out to get the kids back into the classroom and be effective like other school districts have been, at this point, I would definitely say that it's a failure upon the leadership of the board and the administration. Again, separating out the principals and the teachers in that to effectively give us a path back to normalcy for the students. We have got to get back to more of a traditional path for the students, especially, I would say, the younger children, middle school, elementary. I know that both of my kids, they were chomping at the bit to get back into the classroom today. As much as it is an educational path for them, the social aspect needs to be considered in this fashion. Being online and being remote all the time is not something that's sustainable for young kids. Potentially high school, maybe that's a little bit better, a little bit more easier given their maturity level and their social interaction. But we have to take that into consideration. And again, my hope is that we take this time and really vet out a strong plan that is safe for the children, safe for the teachers, and gets them back into the classroom, perhaps in a phased approach over the coming months, regardless of what the decision is made today.
Thanks, Tim.
I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay. If you still would like to speak on the computer, go ahead and raise your hand, but we'll switch over to the phone lines if you want to open the first 4 or 5 of those.
Okay.
Oh, wait. Do we have to do the *6 thing?
Yeah, I can only request an unmute.
Okay. So if you're on your phone, I think if you hit *6, you will unmute yourself. And so if you want to do that, give it a try. Do *6 and then just state your name.
Andy, this is Tori Barber. I have my hand up on my computer, but I don't think Dan can see it.
Okay. Go right ahead.
All right. Good evening. My name is Tori Barber, and again, I am a teacher at Three Rivers and the president of the Education Association of Pembroke. Tonight's decision on possibly going remote through the holidays will have a far-reaching impact on all stakeholders in the district. The association surveyed its members as to their preference of going full remote or staying hybrid during this time. Of the 92 respondents, 73 said that they would prefer to go full remote. 13 had no preference, and 6 would prefer to stay in hybrid. Overwhelmingly, our staff has stated that both for the safety and the continuation of instructional models, it would make the most sense for the district to move to a remote learning model. We believe that this will prevent an anxiety of knowing there is a possibility that we can be sent to remote learning at any point without warning due to exposure in the building. This will also prevent our students and staff from having back and forth between hybrid and remote models, possibly multiple times over the course of the next couple of months. Having the consistency of one model throughout this time will allow teachers to plan effectively and with the knowledge that their lessons won't be upended due to a quick switch to remote learning. The association is also advocating for teachers to have the option to fulfill their professional duties when working from home. Should the district move to remote, safety during the time of surging COVID numbers is paramount, and reducing the number of people in the buildings will reduce the risk of transmission. Allowing staff the choice to teach from home will enable them to reduce their risk of exposure and limit the potential that they would be unable to teach should they become symptomatic. The EAP would like to thank Ann Bond for coming into our schools last week. Student. To see to
Thanks, Tori. That got pretty choppy at the end. Was it the same for everybody else, or is it me? Okay. We do have that letter in our board, though. I think I'm sorry, in our board folder. So board members, I guess. I think it was. I think what Tori said was pretty much what the letter says. So if you haven't reviewed that, maybe you can do that to understand what she was saying.
We have 3 minutes, Andy.
I'd be happy to call in later tonight on a better phone line too, if you wanted.
Okay. Thank you. Sure, Dan, let's go ahead and do the hands while we've got them, and then we'll switch over to, let's just take these two, and then we'll switch over to the phones, because I think I did see someone unmute themselves on the phones.
Okay. KCD.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Casey Deslitz. My son, Raymond Weatherby, he goes to Three Rivers. We currently are full remote with him due to we did not want risk of COVID due to us actually living with my elderly parents. I just want to say, if you guys do consider doing full remote, I hope it goes fully remote, not hybrid. I believe it was Kim who spoke and said the days off seem to be very hard for some students, including my son. If he had a constant, like we did at the first 2 weeks, when we started off, where they had the teachers doing full remote for 4 days in a row. That worked perfectly. He was able to engage. He was learning more. He basically was able to ask the questions he's struggling with now in the hybrid version. Unfortunately, we were going to put him back into hybrid because going into school because he was struggling. And unfortunately, we've all got COVID over here. So we are back in quarantine together. But I just wanted to give my voice reasons. I think the teachers should also, like Matt said, if you guys are going to remote, don't try not to force them to go to the school. I think it'd be better off that for them to be at home with their families, staying safe as well. And I just want to thank all of Three Rivers for dealing with me during remote.
Thanks, Casey. We got one more.
We do, Deanna, and we had a hand raised after as well. But Deanna's next.
Okay, go ahead, Deanna.
Hi, this is Mark Dumonte and his husband. What I wanted to talk about tonight and bring up to you guys, I would like you guys to designate the teachers as essential workers. And I would like you guys to talk more about that and talk about DHHS saying that you guys can do that. I'd like people to go more in depth to explain why they're not designated as essential workers right now, even though you guys can. That'd be one more step towards being able to have more full days through each side of vacation. The more days we can have the kids in school, the better. We should be trying to do that. We shouldn't be looking to go remote because it's easier on the staff or easier on anyone else, because these kids are missing a lot of education as it is. I'd like a vote from the school board members on making them essential workers. That's the least that could be done. And if you guys could have an in-depth conversation on this, I know you guys know a lot more about this than I do. It would help inform all of us. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed. Thanks.
Andy?
Thank you. Was that Kevin? Was that you?
Yeah, I've had my hand raised, but I guess Dan can't see it.
Dan, was that the other one that you just saw?
No, it wasn't. Did you have it? Yeah, I can't see it on here. It's not going to the top of the list, Kevin.
I've actually unraised it and raised it again to see if that solved it. I'm not sure what's going on there.
Okay. Let's take Dan. Can you still see the other one that you saw a minute ago?
Yes, I can.
Let's do that one. Then we'll get Kevin. Then we're going to cut it off and go to the phones because we're past 15 minutes already.
Okay, it's Kelly Alberico.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Hi, it's Kelly Alberico. I have 3 girls in the school systems, Three Rivers and Hill. And, while I respect what Miss Barber said and what the teachers are saying, I just need to wrap my brain around how our sister districts, how Hooksett and Bow have been so successful back to school, in school full time. I know Bow shut down for 1 week due to a COVID outbreak, where I think it was 1 case, and they were back open full time, kids in school. Hooksett shut down for 1 day, back full time, kids in school. I'm just trying to figure out why it's such an issue for Pembroke. And I just also would like to, if going fully remote is inevitable, which seems to be what's happening, I would echo what Tim Girardi said, and it needs to be what's occurring on the synchronous learning days, where the kids are live and with their teacher and getting class and learning and getting somewhat of a classroom experience as best they can. Whereas the asynchronous days, the children are still just done in half an hour and call it a day. And I just feel like we are approaching quickly on a year of this model. And if we're going to go fully remote, we've got to do a better job than what we're doing. And I think the synchronous learning days have been incredible. The 2 weeks that Hill School were remote and the hybrid days that the kids were doing synchronous learning with the teachers, I think was really, really great. And my kids did great, but I am terrified to go fully remote and have it not be that way. And I just really, really, really want to understand why Bo and Hooksett can figure it out and we can't.
Thank you. Let's grab Kevin and then we'll go to the phones.
All right. Thanks, guys. I'll be quick. I'm really curious. I wish everybody who speaks would just identify what model their children are participating in. Because my daughter is a fully remote student at Hill School, and my experience has been extremely positive. And I'm not sure if it's when people are referencing the disappointment in asynchronous days, if that's with hybrid students, if the rigor is not necessarily there from the hybrid students, because my perspective as a parent of a fully remote student is that the asynchronous days are actually, I find, more rigorous than the synchronous days, and are very well thought out, very organized, and reinforcing the previous day's live instruction. And I've been very pleased with that. So I just wish people would more clearly identify when they're talking about their likes and dislikes, what model, so that you guys can understand where they're coming from more clearly. And then I do just want to touch base as you guys are talking about the possibility of going remote from Thanksgiving through early January, like many districts are doing. While this doesn't really affect my daughter because she's fully remote, I am in favor of this. My wife is a staff member at Pembroke Hill School. We are a multi-generational household. My parents are here in our home and they're getting up there in age. We are also the primary caretakers for looking after my 90-year-old grandmother, who is still independently living, but relies heavily on services to bring her the things she needs to maintain isolation. And that's getting increasingly difficult to do as we find that students and parents are not adhering to quarantine recommendations. We don't have a lot of information at the school level as to who should be quarantining or who even is positive, just that there are positive cases. I would like the nurses to speak a little more to that because I think that's a reality we face. And somebody mentioned at the last meeting about going full in and asking what that would look like. I honestly, I don't know about TRS or Pembroke Academy, but I really don't see how that's possible at Hill School since we combined Village and Hill into one building. Pretty much a third of that building has no adequate or real ventilation to speak of. The hallways are very narrow. They all dead end, so there's no way to have safe two-way traffic. It really isn't possible. And because of the merger, they relied very heavily on a lot of little rooms that don't have windows and don't have any ventilation. I mean, a couple of them have been retrofitted with makeshift bathroom fans over the years, but that's not adequate. So I really don't see how you can even entertain that right now safely. And lastly, I would just like to say I did send all school board members a letter, like I said I would, at the last school board meeting, or not the last one, but the last one I was at least on November 5th. I would ask the chair to, and with his board's approval, that letter just be furnished to Sandy Valine and be part of the public record of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's try phones again. If you're on the phone and you would like to contribute to public comment, go ahead and hit, I think it's *6, and we'll see if we can get on. I can hear you. Can you go ahead and tell me your name again?
Good.
So, somebody on that one wanted to speak? Oh. Okay, I'll give it another 30 seconds or so. Okay, I think we will then move on to agenda item 3B, agenda review. Patty, do you have anything for agenda review?
Yes, we need to have a non-public under small letter C, which is matters which, if discussed in public, would likely adversely affect the reputation of any person other than a member of the board. We have some updates on bus routes that we could add maybe before the school instructional model. I'm wondering if we would move the budget maybe to 4B so that we could get to the school instructional model first and finish up with that.
That's okay with me.
And then under the school instructional model, I do want to recognize our school nurses to speak, as well as Mr. Vizina to speak as requested about athletics.
All right. Thank you. Board members, is there anything that you would like to see if we can fit in tonight?
Andy, this is Ann. In the past meetings, we have always said that we would have an eye on our budget for 2021, and I don't see that on here this evening.
We're going to have Amber talking on the 21-22 budget. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes, 21-22 budget. So we can ask her if she has an update, and if not, we can ask her to please bring us one next time around.
Andy, just for your information, Amber is not at this meeting, but I do have some information that she gave me to share with you.
Okay, great. So, and if you have questions further than what gets answered tonight, shoot me an email afterwards. I'll forward them to Patty and Amber, and we'll make sure that's an actual full agenda item next time around for this year's budget.
Thank you very much.
Andy, this is April. I would also like to ask that we add it as an official agenda to this meeting. We did talk about this information at our previous meeting. We were told that we would get it before our meeting tonight, and our superintendent has just told us that she has information to share with us. So I just respectfully ask that we do add it as an agenda item.
Yep. No, I already wrote it down.
Thank you.
If there's something, since Amber's not here, I just wanted to make sure that if there's something that Patty can't answer, that we get it on there for next time around also.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? Okay. Then we'll move on to 3C, gifts and donations. Anything? Anybody? Pretty please? No? Okay. That was a quick one. Consent agenda. No? Okay. Then, so Patty requests we move 3E down into 4B. So we will move on to agenda item number 4, continuing business. And we've got some information about bus routes. Patty, do you have that for us, or is Linda in attendance?
Linda is on the phone, so hopefully she can unmute herself with *6.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Linda.
Hi. I'm just continuing on with bus routes. I did the afternoon from the last meeting. They weren't timed on the afternoon, so I've added them on. It's cut a lot of time down from traveling out there because there's so many areas that we just aren't picking up students. And sometime if we can go onto this route, it would take care of the students that are having to stay behind at schools and wait for the bus to come back for them. We could take both runs at the same time, still running with comfortable numbers. I haven't had any new ones up until this afternoon. I got a call for someone asking if they could put their daughter on the morning bus from here on in. And that's been it.
Okay, so you think at this point we can do afternoon runs all together, get rid of the delays at school, and still keep the distancing numbers that we were aiming for? Did I sum that up right?
Yes.
Okay. Patty, do you have input on that as far as if we want to take action on it tonight?
Sure. If Linda thinks it's doable and you feel comfortable taking action, that would be great.
All right. Board members, do you have questions, or would you like to make a motion, or more information needed?
Andy, this is Ann. I would like to move the bus stops that were presented going forward.
Okay.
I'll second that, Gene.
Thank you. Discussion. Okay, then all in favor of approving the bus routes as presented in the drive that Linda has discussed tonight. On a roll call vote, Jean?
Yes.
That's one call now. Thank you. Ann?
Yes.
Thank you. April?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'm a yes. So Linda, I guess work with Amber, or whoever it is you usually work with at the school to find out, how to announce that to everybody and when the best time is to start. So, obviously don't want to start it probably tomorrow without anybody knowing, but you've got the go ahead to work that out, and that sounds awesome.
Okay, thank you much all.
Great. Okay, so that brings us to probably the big topic for the night, one of them, the school instructional model. So we'll give Patty the floor for a minute to discuss the matrix. and where we're at with that.
That's going to be a little bit longer discussion tonight. Do you mind if we start with Mr. Vizina so that he can give you his information and finish up with athletics?
Nope, that's fine as long as we get it all in.
Okay.
So, Mr. Vizina, if you want to talk sports, let's do it.
Yeah, just like to have the go-ahead to begin preparations and have winter sports. It's going to be similar to what we did in the fall. It's going to be localized, area teams, short bus rides. But now we are indoors, so that's going to make things a lot more difficult as far as safety goes. So we're looking at players are going to be required to wear masks while playing against each other. Fans will not be allowed. It'll be down to one, maybe two parents per player, which causes a little bit of a problem with transportation and things, but that's stuff we're still trying to work out. A lot of schools are live streaming all their games anyways, so it gives the public the chance to watch the games. So there's that technology and capability out there, and I have been exploring it and stuff, and in talks with our IT department about what we can handle and stuff if we were to go that route as well. So everything's being prepped and stuff. Ice hockey, of course, is played off-site, and they have their own rules and stuff. I toured our arena, Everett Arena in Concord the other day, and they showed me their protocols and steps and guidelines and what they're doing. And, it's right in line. The state's come down real hard on them anyway, so they're really turning it up. So, I think there's a way that we can do it and make it as safe as possible and stuff and give these kids an opportunity.
Thank you. Board members, questions for Mr. Vizina regarding winter sports?
Hi, Andy. This is Ann. When I was in touring the schools the other day, do we have still an issue with like locker rooms and things, or is that something that you wouldn't be able to use during winter sports?
Yeah, that would be something too. We wouldn't allow teams would have to come, as dressed as possible. It's pretty much, sweatsuit with your uniform on underneath, throw on your sneakers in the stands and stuff, limit the, closeness of teams as much as possible. All that stuff has been discussed, and, we're just hammering out, everyone's waiting to get the okay from their school boards to do this, but we got the plan. We're ready to go. It's just, a matter of once we know who's on board, we put it all into play.
The second question I have is, do we have students that would come in and volunteer to run the streaming for the game?
The technology that's out there, we don't even need that. You can get a camera that mounts in the gym, and you can just program it, and it just does it all for you. You don't even you don't even have to bring in extra people. And it's also something that can be a multi-use too. It can be used for the budget meetings, in the spring, Christmas concerts and stuff like that. So it's a tool that can be utilized throughout, not just for basketball and stuff. So
that's wonderful. Andy, just one last question. Would we upload those videos to our homepage, like probably whatever school they're at, like if it's PA or if it's Three Rivers?
Yeah, no, there would be links and stuff like that wherever we're playing and stuff. And the deal I'm looking at too, we could also maybe get a camera for Three Rivers too, as well. So, there's a lot of technology out there, and they're trying to be good and offer deals and stuff in this time to help schools out and stuff. So
thank you very much for the hard work.
No, you're welcome.
Others?
Quick question. If the schools go remote, will sports still move forward?
I don't see
space for that.
I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, obviously we'd have to work around, within, teams wouldn't be coming in at 10 a.m. to get into practice or anything like that. We'd still follow, after school model and stuff, but it'd be just as easy. The contract contact tracing would be much easier to do and stuff like that. They'd be isolated anyways. They'd be in their own little bubble. So going to remote is not a bad thing for sports.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep.
April, did you have anything?
Just a clarification on the, I guess I should this is April. Just a clarification question on the recordings. Would the recordings simply be live stream, or would they be recordings that people who wish to see the game can watch at a later time?
We could look to do both, you know. It has that capability. We have that capability. We tape most of the games anyways. The teams do, and it's uploaded on stuff. So we could always get them recorded and out there. It's a matter of if we want to try to do it more live, you know, we need some more help.
Thank you.
Sure. I've got a couple, I don't think questions, more comments. I'm generally, you know, a supporter of sports and like to see those things. I think it's great for kids. One kind of concern I have that I don't think is major at this point is just the cost. You know, sports costs something, and in the situation that we're in with the budget uncertainty that we have, I think it would be irresponsible if we were to get to a point where we were legitimately out of money and had to have a special meeting and ask the community for more money for the year, than to look back and say, oh, well, we spent this much on sports. But I asked that question about kind of the situation that we're in a few meetings back, and Amber and Patty kind of responded that they didn't think that was on the horizon. We were in pretty good shape as far as financials go. So I don't think that's a huge concern. So I guess my other comment is, from what I saw, which admittedly wasn't a ton, I think fall sports went really well. I think that people mostly respected the distancing and things like that, and that was great. And even, you know, I know us and other schools made the hard decision to cancel playoff games when it came to that, and so that helps me be okay with this, to know that even when it, you know, even when the season's on the line, even when things get tough, people are making health conscious decisions. So that's great. I just wanted to applaud you for that. I guess I would ask Patty, I'm not sure that we need action. I think by default, sports are happening unless we were to make a motion that they're not. Is that correct?
The last motion that you made that passed was for sports to move forward. I don't remember that you designated a specific season. But I think most athletic directors are going before their school boards knowing that winter sports are a little bit different. And we're moving inside and closer contacts, and people are making policies to wear masks while they're playing and expecting other schools to do the same. So I think that there's ongoing conversation, and that we wanted to at least discuss it with the board and give you the opportunity to weigh in. And then if somebody did want to make a motion and make any changes, you'd have the freedom to do so.
Okay. So I think that's where we're at this point. If anybody has something that they want to bring up one way or the other, but I think that the situation that we're in is that we did approve sports to continue. So I don't think we need to explicitly do anything if we want that to happen. But if there was concern or want to change that in any way, we need a motion to that effect. So I will leave it open for a minute.
Andy, this is Ann. Do we have a cost of the camera? Because maybe there's, you know, like Pals of Football, you know, communities like that would donate for the cost.
Yeah, it's $2,500 for 2 cameras and installation. I do have ways that I can try to, you know, get some of that money chopped down and stuff through some donations and things as well too. I have some connections out there, but yeah, that's what the initial one was. So, but you know, obviously that's just installation. What is our installation? What else is going to have to be done to get that installation done? Obviously might be a little bit extra, but it didn't sound like too bad of a deal.
No. And Patty, do we have that in the budget if they're not able to fundraise it?
We would have to move some money around if we wanted to okay that, but I think Fred has some ideas and some areas in the athletic budget that we might be able to cover it.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to put out there that colleges have been doing this for years. You know, if my son played soccer 4 hours away from home on a Tuesday night, and I couldn't see it. It's live, and then they save it, you know, at a different time so the grandparents can watch.
Yes, no, there's many, many, many benefits to this.
Yeah, I appreciate you looking outside the box for these kids. Thank you.
Any
Andy,
other questions? Go ahead, April.
this is April. I just have a question. I'm just curious, what happens if our school, what if we're in session and schools are closed, per the directive of DHHS that we must close our schools? What happened to games then? I've heard that those games have to be forfeited, but I don't know if there's any truth in that. So I'm
Well,
hoping to get some information about that.
yeah, it really doesn't matter if it's well, sort of regular season, what it's called, because it's an open tournament. So if we lose games, we did that this fall against Bow. There was an issue over there, and we didn't play them for the week. So it just, you know, you just roll with the punches. If we can't play, we can't play. When it gets to the playoffs, and our boys soccer team felt this the hard way, and it really hit home, is that, doesn't matter when it comes, sometimes, you're on the tough end of the break. So hopefully we can avoid that for the winter season. But, if we have to cancel, we cancel and we move on.
Other questions or comments? Okay.
Can I say one thing, Andy?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know there's a bunch of parents and my athletes out there watching and stuff, and I just want to thank them for a great fall season. It wasn't easy. They had to do some things out of their comfort zone and stuff. There were some bumps along the road, but they were great. We couldn't have gotten to what we did without them, and I just want to thank them. I can't thank them enough, the parents and the athletes. So thank you, and thank you for the board too for allowing us to go ahead and give them all an experience.
Great. Thanks for joining us tonight, Fred.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on. Patty, you want to do nurses next, or do you have something else in mind?
I will start the matrix and then pull the nurses in pretty quickly, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to walk you through it a little bit more tonight than we typically do. I did indicate on the matrix that part of the dashboard was down when I did that this morning. So I took some information from the dashboard from Global Epidemics for some of the data. So once the dashboard is up again, it might be a little bit different, but it should be close. So right now, Merrimack County was showing at 5.1 per 100,000. And the town of Pembroke was 17, but I believe someone said that it was updated to 21 when the dashboard came back up. So we are still in the far right of the hybrid section there. And then there's obviously an issue with the results in the Pembroke schools, and others have noticed that I'm not sure if the dashboard isn't being updated regularly, but we've shown consistently 0 cases, and that's certainly not been the case. Had 5 students at Hill School who tested positive. I think they are, if I remember correctly, cleared as of today. We also had 2 remote students at different schools. The commissioner has addressed this issue with the state, and they've indicated they will not be reporting remote students. And superintendents find this to be of great concern because some of our remote students do come into our buildings for services, and remote students are interacting with our students in school in other venues outside of our control. So it's a concern for us that we're having to find out, from parents or other community members when one of our remote students tests positive. So we've appreciated the communication from the families, but it's not been thorough with DHHS. I'm going to pull the nurses in at this point. I know that they're with us because I'd like them to talk about not only our positive results, but I'm going to give you some information on staff and student absenteeism, which is where they're tracking lots of cases and quarantines. I'm not sure. Allison, are you speaking tonight?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Do you want to go ahead and talk about the data that you're tracking?
Sure. So consistently, I'm seeing an increase in numbers of quarantine among students and staff members in relation to exposure to positive cases. We currently have 2 positive cases within PA, 1 staff, 1 student, actually now number 2 student in the last hour or so. I am today seeing a disturbing trend upward coming in today. Usually I see so far, maybe 1 to 2 individuals that I need to talk to about possibly quarantining. Today I had 6 in total of new quarantines. Now it's up to 7 within the last hour and a half. Staff, I had 4 earlier today, plus 2, now 6, for a total of 11. So we have an increasing amount that is going to make it difficult for the staff to cover the educational requirements of the students going forward in the next few days. Finding this actually quite disturbing. Also, a number of students that I have quarantined have been involved in sports-related activities that are outside of PA that have made contact tracing a bit more difficult, to say the least, in trying to figure out what students are where, when they've contacted somebody who is positive, and what that means for the rest of our students. As mentioned, Patty, you mentioned that, although we have remote students, they are in contact with students that do currently come into the building and within activities outside of school. So that does complicate things. Each day it is increased. April Barker is going to speak regarding our numbers. We have been documenting our numbers. My numbers at Pembroke Academy have increased significantly since our last school board meeting. And instead of repeating information, I'll let April speak to that. But I am increasingly concerned about the safety and well-being of both staff and students, and feel at this point that we need to go into a remote model for safety of all, just in the next coming days. To let things, kind of quiet and to see where we're at. We have a lot of pending tests at this point, which I don't have the answers to yet, which could deeply impact the way that we are running our daily schedules. I also want to indicate that with the change in some of the guidelines with DHHS, it's becoming increasingly more difficult. When I was informed of a positive case on Sunday, I made a phone call to DHHS and did not hear back from them for a day and a half later. In speaking with that particular representative, finally yesterday at 3:30 in the afternoon, and running by them what my actions were, in confirming that I had indeed, gave the best recommendations. They are, I guess, a bit surprised that we haven't made a decision on whether we are going full remote going forward through the holidays. Again, I have to look at things and be very proactive versus reactive in this entire scheme of things. I think going into a holiday season with a pandemic is something none of us, professionally, privately, anybody has experienced ever before. And I feel very concerned for the health and well-being of all of us going forward.
Thank you very much. April?
Hi, guys. So I have a collection of data from all the 3 schools. I know last time we had the school board meeting on the 5th, I spoke about the different numbers, and I think what I wanted to do tonight is to kind of give an update of those numbers. Pembroke Academy is up about 60% from 2 weeks ago in regards to the cases that have been tracked. So we are at 5 positive cases versus 3 a couple of weeks ago. in regards to symptomatic students that have been sent for testing. We're at 148, and that's a cumulative number from 97 back on the 5th. Quarantining due to travel are 4. Quarantining due to exposure are up to 34. And we were at 14 a couple of weeks ago. And then the total cases tracked are 192 versus 116. For Three Rivers School, we went from 3 positive cases to 4. Symptomatic and sent for testing, we're at 49 from 43. Quarantining due to travel, we're at the same, which was 7. Quarantining due to exposure, we are at 23. We have another case as of this evening versus 14. And then total cases tracked went from 87 to 70. And then Pembroke Hill School, we have positive cases 2 weeks ago, we're at 4. We are at 6. For symptomatic and sent for testing, they were at 56 2 weeks ago, and we are at 62. Quarantining due to travel is the same at 2. Quarantining due to exposure is at 40 versus 16. And then quarantining that opted out of testing, so those are the students that have symptoms that we recommend they test and they choose not to. That is 22 for Hill School versus 20. And then total cases tracked are at 134 versus 74. So total out of the 3 schools, when we met, we were at, sorry, my number is very blurry, 260 2 weeks ago. And then tonight we're up to 453. So again, that's kind of a cumulative amount of cases that we've tested. Doesn't necessarily mean that they have COVID, because again, total cumulative cases of positives are at 15 for the 3 Pembroke schools since we started school.
Thank you very much.
Was Kathy going to speak, or just Allison and April?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll move on. She can speak up if I'm missing her. So as you can see, there's a lot of concern for the increase in cases and quarantines, and unfortunately, as Allison touched upon at Pembroke Academy, it's also flu and cold season. So we have staff members who are sick and they cannot be in the building. We're waiting for those test results. The test results are taking longer. We don't know when we'll get them back, but in the meantime, they can't be in the building, and they're quarantining. And it's become more than a matter of not having enough subs. I think the schools have done an extraordinary job of pulling from every section that they can to cover, to include our sub coordinator, who's usually in one of our offices, has actually been pulled to put in as a substitute in our classrooms. But it's more than the subs, it's the level of experience. So when you're patching coverage together, you have students who are not receiving instruction from their teachers. And the number of teachers affected is increasing so much that just increases the number of students that aren't getting their classes taught by a certified educator. So that's part of the concern. I do want to touch upon also, we mentioned the travel, and those are small numbers. And I think there's a little bit of conversation that the travel is the concern, and the travel over the holidays and the travel of the staff members. And I think that it's fair to say that's one of our least concerns right now. We will deal with that on an individual basis, but our recommendation, the nurse's recommendation, is not because of the concerns for travel. We are having some significant already exposures and quarantines, and the holidays are certainly going to add to that, based upon small gatherings that people may or may not have. Allison talked about the new students at Pembroke Academy. Some people may have received a phone call from Dan during this period. We unfortunately have to be remote because of the number of
Was that
staff
Kathy?
students.
Patty was. I think Kathy was trying to chime in.
Oh, Kathy, are you there? Is that you?
She's unmuted.
She's trying to unmute. She did text me an update. If you want me when you're done, Patty, I can share, or if she can get it, takes.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
So for Hill School, as you know, we just spent about a week and a half on full remote. The main reason for it was really the problem with contact tracing. It was Kathy had to really spend a lot of time working with public health. And as Allison said, there's a huge lag right now because they are absolutely flooded with things going on. They've been great to get a hold of them, but that time in between sets us back. A lot of what we know is contact tracing fell on us for a huge majority of it. Most of our quarantining and our positive cases were ones that we found out through the contact tracing, and we have asked that parents in the future please provide quarantining mandates or positive results to the school to help facilitate decisions that need to be made. That was a challenge this time, was kind of tracking down all of that information. It's taking a lot longer to get results, so that does set us back. We were up to about, we had 23 on quarantine. They're coming off half today, half tomorrow at our highest. And it was on a moment by moment basis. I would open up our tracking sheet and names would just have, filled in on that. So for us, the biggest thing was the time it takes to contact trace, really being given the information that we need. We're really asking that, the parents help out and share that with us so we know if they're on active quarantine, and providing us with the dates that they're required to come, or they can come back on, or reporting any positive cases as well. A lot of this, things that are happening in the community. We didn't have any exposures at Hill. We were remote, and that really did help a lot of it. We prevented quite a bit while we were at remote, or even in our hybrid model. So those were some of the challenges that we faced during that week and a half remote, and why we kept having to extend it, because that contact tracing piece was not completed or inaccurate, and there was no way that list just kept growing. And if we had opened the building at a certain time, we would possibly have had kids in the building that had been exposed to someone who tested positive. So that was kind of where we were at with that contact tracing piece.
Thank you.
I have to chime in on Wendy's comments just to support her in the respect of the contact tracing. As many of you have probably watched the governor's last press conference, they have so-called empowered our schools to do more of the work than we have in the past, which was already incredibly time consuming. So I can only imagine what Kathy's job was, assisted by many others, I'm sure, at her school. It is increasingly difficult to do contact tracing. Certainly we are understaffed in order to do that. Should we have several people at once that need contact tracing, as in Kathy's experience there? So having the support that we need in order to complete that is imperative. So going forward, I just want everyone to understand that our health departments at each school are extremely limited, and we don't have a lot of assistance in that particular part of it. Just having our numbers increase in the last hour and a half, with student and teacher outages going forward. I know we had the announcement from Dan about Thursday or Wednesday and Thursday, but at this point we are probably not going to have enough staff to complete Friday. So it's an ever-changing complex situation from day to day. So I think keeping that in mind, that none of us have any control over this in any way, is really important in the whole scheme of things. And safety is my number one priority for all.
Thanks, Allison.
Thank you.
Okay, so to continue on with the matrix, I did move on staff absenteeism. I have some highlighted in the far right of hybrid, and then I also have red highlighted because we do need to think about each school. And at this point, Pembroke Academy is in the red, and the staff absenteeism is unmanageable right now. The availability of cleaning is still fine. We're still in the green. When you move down to compliance with protections, some of you may be wondering why I moved us over to the far right of hybrid on that area for the first time. And that section reads, there are small gaps in compliance to the protective measures in place. And I will reiterate that these are small gaps. This is not meant to by any means portray that this is the majority of the community. This is a very small number. Some people may be as surprised as I was to hear that there were parents that did not report their children as positive. And we heard it secondhand, and it was confirmed with DHHS. We have had people send their children into school that were supposed to be on quarantine, that we've had to find out about secondhand. We've had parents send their children in who have traveled. We have had parents send their children in who were sick and direct them not to tell any of the adults in the building. So this is really disappointing for all of us. And like I said, it's a very small number, but it has to be mentioned because people need to be aware that this occurred, and it's causing a lot of anxiety for a lot of people in the building. We are doing an awesome job in our schools. These exposures are not in our schools. They are at outside events. People are mentioning how are other districts pulling this off? Well, all things being equal, we would be doing fine as well, but we cannot control events that are happening outside of school, which is where all of these exposures have happened. We are not getting that information. We did, luckily at that time, Wendy and Kathy were able to work with DHHS, and they decided that even though it was community exposure, they were going to give us names because we needed to get our buildings open. We needed to figure out which students needed to be quarantined, and it was taking several days. So they did assist us and give us the names, whereas the sponsors of community events did not give us the names. So it's been a real struggle. It's been a daily struggle. And I think people are worn down, and that's part of the reason that our experts on the front line, our nurses providing the health care, our educators trying to keep everything going, and our administrators trying to provide coverage and work with me on a daily and hourly basis to figure out if we can have school open. This is not the position any of us want to be in. This is not the recommendation that I want to be making to you. Can we continue in hybrid? Absolutely we can. We just had to shut Pembroke Academy for 2 days, and now we're thinking it may be 3 days. Tomorrow we might have to shut down Three Rivers. It's going to be day by day, hour by hour. And if that's the decision that the board makes, we will all respect that, and we will continue on a daily basis to monitor things. I think that there is enough uncertainty. The transmission rate is increasing. The spreads are substantial. And that's the reason that we're looking for some consistency to say, okay, everybody knows what's going on. We're going to be remote. If we're remote, teachers who have colds and are quarantined can continue to teach, and students will receive remote instruction. All of the students that are quarantined will be able to receive instruction from their teachers. So that's the update. That's the summary. And if you want to talk about the travel as well, I'm willing to do that. I can do it now, or we can take a break for questions and comments.
When you say travel, are you tying into the question regarding making the teachers essential employees? Yeah. Yep. Why don't you go ahead and tackle that while we're at it?
Okay, sure. So we've talked about that guidance. We had made a decision as an SAU earlier not to classify, well, our teachers are classified as essential workers, but we still made the choice to have the teachers quarantine. We've talked a lot. The nurses in the SAU have spoken, the administration has spoken, the HR office has spoken to their contacts around the state. And we feel that if the recommendation for people is to quarantine for 14 days, then why would we want to lessen that restriction on our teachers who will be in our buildings with our students? So we have made that decision. The guidance did just change a little bit for quarantines for from 14 days to at least 7 days and then a test. With our experience with testing right now, if you're waiting till your 7th day to take a test, it's going to be close to a week before you get the results back anyway. It may cut down a couple of days, but I'm not optimistic about that. So that's another conversation that the board can certainly have, but up until now, that's the recommendation that we've made as an entire SAU, was to require the 14-day quarantine for staff. And to remind you, even if you're an essential worker, you can't quarantine out of exposures, and you can't test out if you have a cold. You still have to be out for the 14 days. So that won't help that situation. And that's it for now.
All right, that was a lot. I think to try to keep this orderly, maybe we'll just go around, and if I call on you and you're not ready and just want me to skip you, just let me know and I'll skip you. I've got some things to ask, but I'll wait. So I guess, April, if you've got anything prepared you want to ask, go ahead. If not, I'll move on to somebody else.
So I'd like to hear more about what the state requires schools to do as far as contact tracing, because we know from the governor's recent press conference that the state is no longer going to be doing universal contact tracing in cases of COVID-19. And because they believe that it's not the most effective way of slowing the virus, the spread of the virus, and they're reserving those investigations for only high-risk populations. I'd like to hear a little bit about requirements for school public health surveillance. I'm curious if our nurses are going above and beyond what is required, and if that could possibly be causing some fatigue. Those are questions that I have.
So Patty, I guess while we're doing the questions here, I'll leave it to you to either answer or ask one of the administration or the nurses to answer each question, if that's okay with you.
Sure, that's fine. That seems certainly like contact tracing and school nurse fatigue would be something I would defer to the nurses, and whoever wants to speak up, feel free.
I would like to say that in the last probably 3.5 to 4 weeks that I have worked evenings, weekends, after school. I receive calls at pretty much all hours regarding a new positive case, indicating needs for contact tracing, for informing other individuals in a very quick manner as to what their exposure level has been. So I am working way above and beyond my normal school hours, which is difficult in any circumstances. I think as nurses, unfortunately, we are used to those kind of stresses, but does it make it right? No. We have actually had some conversation about taking on-call hours or possibly putting something like that into place, because it's extremely stressful on us. And going into, a weekend or an evening, we cannot guarantee that that time is hours outside of the office, and possibly thinking about on-call, within the three of us, so that we know that we can have some time to ourselves, that we don't have to be involved in this process. But certainly the worry that we have as nurses, professionals, personally, is extreme. So I definitely would, advocate for anything that we can do to assist all of us. and our own well-being as well.
This is April. I still don't have an understanding if we're mandated to continue with the contact tracing of COVID-19 in our schools and what is actually mandated of our health team to do. I would like a clear understanding of that if that's possible.
Sure. I'm glad to speak to that. We are mandated to do contact tracing. The state is overwhelmed in their responsibilities, as you can, understandably see. But as ethically and professionally, we as nurses are responsible for the contact tracing. So if we have a positive case, we have to continue that. So there is no assistance or support outside of our own schools. And we have to rely upon other administrators in the building and whoever can assist with that process when it happens.
Patty, if I can add to that, it's a very prescribed process that DHHS outlines for us. They provide Allison with a document in an encrypted email, and she has to fill out the fields of that document. So we are really just doing what DHHS has outlined for us. There isn't really a lot of room for interpretation, which is, I guess, good in a protocol like that. I understand where you're coming from in regards to the state now only contact tracing extreme cases. To me, that's more representative of them performing triage on an organization that is overwhelmed right now. The language of empowering schools to now do more of the contact tracing burden is something. That's one way to put it.
Thank you. April, do you have other questions?
Not at this time. Thank you very much for the information.
Go ahead, Wendy.
To put it a little bit into context, if DHHS was up and running and they were able to help with all the contact tracing, even just outside of the school, that gives us a lot of information that they would be able to call in and help. And if it wasn't such a lag time, the nurses wouldn't have to dig as deep or to do things. For an example, if we heard that there was a quarantine case or there was a positive case, if DHHS isn't contact tracing in the background or there's a really big lag time, the nurses don't sit there and wait for it, because that puts us in a position where we could open the building and allow students in. And that was what we just went through. And that was all the work Kathy was doing, where she was going and doing a lot more because of the fact that DHHS was the lag time, because we weren't just going to sit there and wait 3 to 5 days, because that could have even prolonged it. So they're following, like Dan said, the prescription of contact tracing, but really digging into it so that the in-between times they're being very active and trying to figure out what the bigger picture is, and to see if there's cases or things that we're waiting on DHHS coming up. There were instances in this particular situation where we found things out that DHHS had to dig deeper, and they confirmed it, but it wasn't something necessarily that they had found right away. But then they dug deeper on it and were confirming it. So it was really a partnership, and that's what it looks like on the ground right now. And the work that the nurses are doing is a lot of those in-between times DHHS. It doesn't fall strictly to public health anymore. They do a lot of it. But to me, it's necessary. Otherwise, we're going to make decisions where kids could be in the building, and we hadn't really done that work waiting for somebody to get back to us.
Right.
Thank you. Anne, do you have questions?
Thank you, Andy. And you're right, that it is a lot of information. What I wanted to find out, and I was trying to write them as quick as they were saying, but I may not have heard the whole amounts. I am having issues with the audio. Do we have the numbers of cases that we quarantined that turned into actual positive cases? I think I might have missed that.
Sorry, Anne.
I to that to Hill specifically with this last round. there were 2 that were on quarantine that turned into positive cases. So being quarantined in that case was definitely one of those things that put us in a, having everybody out was one of the safety measures.
So just so I'm clear, so the numbers that we were given that they had to go out and quarantine because of the symptoms, only 2 of those cases turned into positive?
That was at Hill. April, did you have other information?
So for Hill, to be honest, I only have the cumulative, so
I apologize, it was 3.
Yeah, as of the 5th, there was 4. As of the 16th, there was 6. I don't know if that helps.
Thanks.
Yeah, so of all the cases that had to quarantine because of symptoms, that 6 turned into positive?
For Hill School, yes.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
3.
So those numbers, just to add to that, yes, you're correct as far as I've had 4 that have turned into positives, but we have had numerous families that have been completely positives. At least I have at PA. So that complicates matters further as far as the quarantining goes, because we have to quarantine those individuals based on their family contacts and then wait to see whether or not that turns into a positivity. At this moment in time, I have quite a few people awaiting testing results, as well as people that are out, staff and students, trying to get a test. The testing right now is very difficult. The rapid test is becoming less and less of a choice because there is a 80% positivity rate on it with a 20% false negative on that. So it's making it difficult. It is recommended that the PCR test, which is the longer one, which takes 2 to 5 days to return those results to individuals, is really the preferred method. People that have tested negative with the rapid are testing positive with the PCR test, which is at about 5 to 7 days after exposure. So often people test too soon, which complicates it. We could have people returning to school or to work that are still within the viral load and have not shown enough of it to test positive, which is a very high risk for everyone involved. So I wanted to mention the verbiage that is coming out initially with the rapid testing. We were getting basically, okay, your rapid test is negative, you can return to work. Now it is changed to, yes, you had a negative result, but the PCR test is pending. We would like you to quarantine anyway. So that also is complicating things greatly, because now people are not able to return necessarily when they have a negative test. They are being told to quarantine until the PCR results are back, and possibly even further. So a lot of times it's a 14-day quarantine regardless of test result.
It's okay. It's okay.
Thank you very much. Andy, my second question is, we have to educate the children, but what happens when we have staff out because they're not feeling well? It may not be COVID, they're just not feeling well. We have flu coming. What happens when we have enough staff out that we just can't even teach any child, even though it's remote? How does that happen? I mean, what does that happen for the Department of Education? I'm sure it's going to happen to somebody.
Patty, do you want to take that one?
I think I understand the question. So, we, in past years, we've learned an awful lot this year, but in past years, teachers tend to power through. So they'll come in with a cold and, they probably should have taken the day off, but they still power through because they want to make sure that they're there for the students. I think this year, the difference would be if you're sick, you can still teach from home. You can still log in and, you may not be 100%, but you're going to still be able to provide an education to the students. Whereas right now, if you're in the least bit ill, you have to quarantine and you're not available to teach your students because you're at home and not in school where the students are.
And I just want to add to that, Patty, just saying because you are home doesn't mean that you are capable of being able to teach. If you have symptoms and are awaiting testing, those that have been through the COVID virus know firsthand how exhausting it is. I have certainly been recommending to staff that has been out of the building, please take care of yourself. We need our staff, we need our teachers, and they need to take care of themselves first before they can have the ability to teach and to do their jobs.
Thank you very much.
Jean, do you have anything?
I was mainly concerned as to how the nurses in the schools were doing the contact tracing, and they answered that already. Thank you, April, for asking that question. I guess I don't really have a question. I have a statement to make, that because I'm kind of angry right now about what Patty said about parents not being honest. I said something last week or last board meeting that we can't depend on parents and maybe sometimes staff to be honest about what's going on, and if they're sick, if they're positive, if they should be quarantining, and these people know who they are, and they're willing to put others at risk because they're being either selfish or inconvenienced. I'm not sure what their reasoning is. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I had a head cold a couple of weeks ago. I stayed away from my grandchild. I stayed out of work just because that's what you have to do right now, because I didn't know at that point. The symptoms went away in less than a week, so great, super. But in this climate, people need to be honest. They need to think of others, not just themselves. And moving forward on this, I'm very disappointed in some of those people in our community that are willing to put others at risk because either they don't believe it's serious or it's inconvenient for them at that point in time. There are other people other than them. There are other students that could get sick, staff that could get sick, grandparents of those students that could get sick from this. So I'm putting this out there to everybody right now who's on this meeting. If you're sick, be honest about it. If your student's sick, be honest about it. Be helpful to everyone else that's trying to make hard decisions. The nurses are running themselves ragged. The administration is running themselves ragged, trying to keep the schools open. And you people are willing to throw that all away.
Thanks, Gene. I think that my questions were mostly covered too. I just had a couple of points I wanted to make because we have heard, I've gotten a fairly significant amount of emails from the community, and there were some in the drive from the staff as well. So I just wanted to be clear with where I stand on the issue, I guess. At this point, I'm in favor of voting for going remote, at least for after the Thanksgiving holiday until Martin Luther King Day, as was recommended by the nurses last time around. Seems like in the last 2 weeks, our numbers have grown in almost every area, some fairly significantly. The administration of the school is suggesting that this is the best course of action. What we heard from Miss Barber and the results of a survey, the teachers overwhelmingly are saying this is the best course of action. Our school nurses, who are the ones that, if we have experts in our district about this, they're the ones that are talking to Dr. Chan and the team around the state. Those nurses are suggesting that this is the best course of action. We are not the only district that is pulling the trigger on this or considering it. One of the districts that was held up earlier in the meeting as somebody that has it figured out is Hooksett. Hooksett is going remote from November 30th until January 15th. So local schools are making the same decision. I know that Deerfield is having the conversation at least. Our schools are closing now. I mean, Hill School was closed because of a delay, not a delay, but just a long-term contract tracing from an event that involved a lot of children, to the point where they didn't feel it safe to open the school. And now, we got a one call now during this meeting that PA's in the same boat. And we've got one of our school nurses telling us that Friday could be a remote day too, because we're not going to have enough staff. Anne just mentioned that. And I think that's probably the most important point here is there's going to come a point, I think, and I think it's inevitable in the next few weeks, especially with people traveling potentially out of state for the holiday, that whether we want to be remote or not is not the question here. It's going to happen. Like, we're going, in my opinion, and of course I'm not a health expert and I don't have a crystal ball, but if we're on that line already, if we're bumping up against the line of we don't have enough staff that can be in the buildings to have them open now, and that number has increased over the last 2 weeks, then 2 weeks from now, after a major holiday that involves a lot of travel, I don't see any way that we're not going to end up remote anyway. So in my opinion, the responsible thing to do is give the families and the teachers and the students as much time as we can to prepare with that decision. Because I honestly think, it is my honest opinion, that if we don't do that, most of those days are going to end up remote days anyway, at least one, if not all of the schools. And what you're left with in that circumstance is we're still remote, but now the teachers haven't had time to plan. The parents haven't had time to find childcare. And I understand that that's not going to be easy for a lot of our families now, but I got to imagine it's going to be easier for them if they have from now until, the end of next week to figure something out, rather than waiting until we get back on the Monday after Thanksgiving and finding out at 6 o'clock in the morning that school is going to be remote. So again, not trying to preach. I just wanted to let the public know where I stand and why I intend to vote the way that I'm going to vote on this.
I want to thank you, Andy, for your statement just now, because it reflects, I think, the thoughts and opinions of a lot of us here tonight. As I stand, when I first started talking about this, I believe also that being proactive in this case versus reactive is the most appropriate approach.
So I guess if there's any other questions, we can go ahead with those. If not, I will accept a motion. If there's not a motion, I intend to make one.
Andy, Amy had shared that she submitted something that she was hoping you would share.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yep, I neglected that. So, yeah, so as I said at the beginning, Amy was excused from this meeting. She had a work commitment tonight that's been scheduled for a long time that she couldn't change, and she sent me an email that she wanted to be part of the record, and she asked that I share it here. So I will read it verbatim with no additions or comments on my part. So the subject line is input for the 11/17 board meeting. It says, "Good evening, Andy. As you know, I'm unable to attend the meeting on 11/17 because of pre-existing professional obligations. I'll be at a public hearing for a client. I have included my thoughts on the remote issue here, and I'd be very appreciative if you could read them in their entirety out loud at the board meeting. First and most important, to provide our students, staff, and district families the safest and most stable, consistent educational environment, I strongly support the proactive transition to full remote instruction from after the Thanksgiving break through the MLK Day. By voting now to go remote, we take back control over our schools. This takes us out of the increasingly erratic schedule imposed upon us based on the increasing instances of positive COVID cases among our students and others, and the follow-up contact tracing. As potential added benefits of going remote in this way, organized sports may continue and year-end senior activities may be more likely to be able to occur. The district's nurses, principals, and superintendent all agree that we should go remote during this period. These are our frontline people, and I defer to and respect their position on this. However, I have independently looked at data myself, and I see support for this as well. Here are some examples of what I rely on. PHS has had several students with COVID. I know this because the school told us. However, the state school dashboard as of 11/12 reported 0 cases. This points out 2 problems. First, that there is a rapidly increasing number of cases at PHS. Second, the state is struggling to keep up on things. In fact, the entire state COVID dashboard crashed for a number of hours repeatedly recently. I also see that the entire state is now the highest level of community spread, which is substantial, and that the daily cases, even excluding long-term care settings, have increased almost every day for several weeks. Second, I also urge the board to consider whether PA should go remote as well or be treated differently than PHS and TRS. The members of the AREA committee from the sending schools have spoken with near unanimity that PA should not automatically be treated the same as TRS and PHS. Personally, I believe all Pembroke schools should go remote, including PA. However, I believe the board should expressly ask and discuss, should PA go remote as well or be treated differently? The unprecedented nature of these pandemic times persists, and the input of our sending schools is as important as ever. Third, on a related issue, because I feel the students should go remote due to the increasing community spread, I feel the teachers must also be given the choice to work remotely while the students are also remote. I trust and respect our teachers. Personally, as a worker, I have experienced how much more productive I have been while working in the comfort of my home, relieved from the worry that I may be giving or getting COVID in the workplace. This pandemic has given many of us a collective kick in the pants to adapt to online and remote work. Nothing distinguishes teachers from the rest of us. They too can and should be permitted to join the wave of remote work, just like so many millions of us worldwide. Both students and teachers will thrive because of it. Fourth, I know that going remote causes hardships at home. With respect to the childcare aspect of that hardship, I urge our families to support each other in this time of need. Connect with neighbors, family, and our schools to make workable childcare solutions that are both safe and affordable. I see so many groups doing this already and encourage more to do so. With respect to nutrition, I know the schools will continue to arrange meals during the remote time. Lastly, going remote raises a few other details, such as whether cohorts will continue, whether Mondays will continue as flex days, whether the daily schedule will change, the extent of synchronous versus asynchronous instruction, and probably a lot more. I feel we should vote now to go remote and leave these issues to the wise discretion and judgment of the principals and superintendent to report out to the board in the future how they're answering each of these questions. Answering these issues provides an opportunity for each of the three schools to consider different approaches. Voting now to go remote allows for the luxury of time to thoughtfully answer these issues in advance of the switch to remote. It is not for our board to answer these questions. It is for us to make sure that our administration is carefully considering them and developing thoughtful plans to move us into and then out of full remote. And I urge the board to direct them to carefully consider these issues moving forward. Thank you so much to those of you who have provided your input to the board on this issue and to my board mates. Regards, Amy.
Andy, this is April. I would like to make a motion based on the feedback that I have received from the majority of taxpayers who foot the bill of public education in that town. And that motion is to continue in the hybrid model of instruction with the option of remote instruction as outlined in prior school board meetings through the end of first semester and resume full in-person instruction as of the first day of second semester.
All right, is there a second?
Andy, this is Ann. I would have to second it from the conversations that I have at the area agreement meeting. There is only one member who attends that does not want their child to go in besides full remote. So I would have to second that.
Okay. Discussion. So let me just make sure I understand clearly. There is a motion to continue the current model through the end of the first semester, and at the beginning of the second semester, switch to a full in-person model.
Correct.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Andy, it's Gene.
Go ahead, Gene.
All right. The board's duty is to take the recommendations made by the administration and authorize implementation of those recommendations. We are not educators. We are not medical professionals. Our duty is the education, safety, and well-being of students and staff at all Pembroke schools. As Ms. Daigle had said, we need to be proactive instead of reactive in this matter. So I think I've made my thoughts well known earlier, but again, I feel that there are a few people out there that we cannot trust to keep our staff and our students safe at this point in time. Coming into Thanksgiving, those same people will travel and they'll come back and they won't be honest about it. Outside of the quarantine area, whatever it might be. So at this point in time, I can't support this motion.
Andy, this is April. I would like to quote RSA 189:1-A, duty to provide education. It states, it shall be the duty of the school board to provide at district expense elementary and secondary education to all students who reside in the district until such time as the pupil has acquired a high school diploma or has reached age 21, whichever occurs first. And I believe, based on the public comments that I've been hearing in our public meetings, as well as people reaching out to me, our residents want the education that they have paid for, and they do not feel that the education that has been provided by the Pembroke School District this year is an adequate education. And I feel a duty to represent those, our students and our families who pay for the Pembroke School District services and education. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann, did you have any comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, I didn't see anyone from the area agreement committees on here this evening. I'm not able to do full screen, so I didn't know if any one of those representatives have weighed in yet.
Jody Moore, I am here from the area agreement.
Okay. I thought I saw Chris on here at one point too, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, Chris Raymond, because WebEx doesn't allow us to change our names. I'm looking a little funny, but yes, Chris Raymond is here.
Andy, can we allow them to have discussion?
I don't want to do discussion because I don't want this to turn into hours and hours. But if there are any AREA members on the call, both of you included, if you want to, I can give you a couple of minutes to go ahead and make a statement if you'd like. Chris, or was it Jody? I'm sorry, I've lost it already.
Yeah, Andy, so didn't think that we'd get the chance to speak since that's typically not. So I thank you very much for giving us the opportunity. So April and Ann and Jean and yourself, we have spoken in AREA that we would like to maintain presence as a hybrid format. One of the things that we have asked is that we would like Pembroke to be thought of separately. However, I am fully recognizing that there are staff resource issues in Pembroke. And so, as we all know, as board members, this is not something where we are going to have, everybody to have what they would want to see. So at this time, I would just recommend that we stay hybrid as much as possible. I would love our students to be in the buildings when they can, but fully understand if there are staff resources where you just don't have the staff to be in the building on that day.
Thanks, Chris. Jody, did you want to say anything or no?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I think it's a tough decision all boards are facing right now. I'm kind of torn, to be honest with you. I was not present at the last AREA agreement meeting, but I certainly would have said, as a healthcare worker and clinician, I feel that the clinical data does present itself. What we decide to do as boards, is the difficult task at hand. However, with that being said, I think it's impossible to make everybody happy. And I just want to know that I support you guys in the decision that you make. I think, we're all faced with this very difficult and challenging time, and it's uncharted waters for everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Jody. Not sure if anybody else from any of the boards on our AREA agreement are here, but if you are and you would like to take a minute, go ahead and let me know. I'll give it a couple of seconds. Okay, thank you both. I guess I'll share some thoughts. Pretty much what Jean said. I can't support this. Remaining hybrid during the holidays is one thing. I don't really support that either, but I understand the intent behind it. with the current uptick in cases in our schools, in our county, in our state, and across the country, while I think certainly, as some members of the public have mentioned in public comment, trying to keep working on the plan to eventually bring our kids back into the building in a somewhat normal fashion is an appropriate use of time. The idea of bringing kids back in 6 weeks or so, fully in the building, when we've been told multiple times we cannot provide social distancing, or many of the other safeguards that DHHS has put in place, I would find it terribly irresponsible to vote in favor of putting all of our kids back in the building. And I think that one thing that needs to be said about that is the question comes up very often, why can't we let the kids that want to go to school, the families that want to send their kids to school, send them to school, and the people that want to be remote, be remote. That's not helpful in as much as it still stretches our resources beyond a reasonable point. If you think of it that way, then you're admitting that we would run our schools as we normally run our schools, which means the normal budget. But we would also be adding on top of that a large remote learning contingent. And unless we have an influx of cash somewhere, or the proposal is to ask our teachers to do that work without any more pay, I don't see where that money's coming from. It's not, we can't just say we can go back to normal and the kids that want to stay home can stay home. That requires a massive amount of resources. And, what I gather from many of the conversations that I witness around town is that there is certainly not a huge appetite to go ahead and increase the budget to cover the cost of something like that. We can't do these types of things for free. We are doing all that we can to have enough staff to cover the remote model that we're doing. So to suggest that we could somehow do everybody back in the buildings plus some teachers teaching remote, I don't know where you're going to find all those people. So for those reasons, I can't support this motion. With that, if there's any last discussion, we can do that, and then we'll call the question.
Andy, Gene, last board meeting, administration raised a concern about going in and out of models, which is exactly what we're doing right now. It's not easy for anybody, teachers, students, parents, to go back and forth between models because 3 days PA is going to be, or 2 days PA is going to be remote, fully remote this week. Maybe they'll be open on Friday, maybe they won't. We don't know at this point in time. So I am, up until a little while ago, I was on the fence about where I was on this topic. And Patty's comments kind of pushed me in the direction I'm going now. But the one thing that we have to look at is our resources. The nurses, obviously, we can see it, we can hear it, and they're telling us that they're being overworked. That's with the teachers too. They've got multiple learning models they're dealing with, plus the preparation that goes along with that. And then administration trying to tie it all together to make it work. Nobody signed up for this. The teachers didn't sign up for it. The nurses didn't sign up for it. Administration didn't sign up for this, what's going on right now. Heck, I didn't sign up for this. I'm trying to make decisions that are affecting people's lives other than getting a kid an education. So, this is way out there, way beyond. We are providing the students with an education in an atmosphere that nobody has envisioned. And I believe we're fulfilling the RSA to the best of our ability right now. Would I like to see this kids all in school full time doing their normal thing? Yeah, absolutely. That's the most important thing. Educating these kids, socializing these kids, moving them forward into life. Unfortunately, we're in a place right now where we can't be normal. I'm not going to call it we're in a new normal because we're going to get back to where we need to be. But we can't have that normal school experience right now. So, it's way over the top at this point in time. So I'd like to move the question if we could.
All right. So just to make sure I get it right, the motion that is on the floor and has been seconded is that the hybrid model remains in place for the remainder of the first semester, and the beginning of the second semester begins with a full in-person model. On a roll call vote, Anne?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Jean?
No.
And I'm a no. So I believe a positive motion has to have a majority to pass, so that motion fails. I will make a motion, I suppose, that we take the recommendation of our nursing staff as well as our administration and our teachers and move to a fully remote model beginning after the Thanksgiving holiday and extending through the Martin Luther King Day holiday, with a return to the hybrid model after that time period.
Second.
Discussion around that one.
Andy, this is Ian. Why all the way out to Martin Luther King Day? Isn't that January 21st?
Is it? If it is, I misspoke then. I thought it was only the second weekend.
The 16th, I thought.
Oh, I'm in the wrong month here. Hold on.
Sorry, I have to pull my calendar up.
Yeah, so Martin Luther King Day is the 18th. So I would intend for hybrid to continue on the 19th. Reasoning being that the holiday break goes through New Year's Day, which really means to Monday the 4th. So then that would provide 2 full weeks of quarantine time, if you want to call it that, before people would be back in the building. That's my logic on that one.
So Andy, again, what's the start date you're looking at?
So hybrid would resume on Tuesday, the 19th of January.
Right, but what's the start date of your motion?
Oh, so the last day of school before Thanksgiving is the 25th. So I guess I would say beginning on Monday the 30th, which I think was the next day of school, we would be remote. So from November 30th until January the 15th. I think that's right.
January 19th.
The 18th is a holiday anyway, so.
Would you consider just 2 weeks of remote from 11:30 to, let's see, that's 1 week, till December 14th? Because what if we are going the opposite way? What if we're getting better and now we're able to teach? Because otherwise we're locked in until January 19th.
Yeah, I mean, I think I believe we have, and this would not be my intention, but I believe we have the authority to, overrule this decision at any point. So I would certainly, if we got to a point in mid-December and the nurses felt good and the numbers were better and everything, I would certainly be willing to reconsider the question. But for now, I want to keep my motion as I believe the suggestion from the nurses was to go 2 weeks past the end of the holiday break. So that's where I want to keep it for now.
Quick question. When does the Christmas break begin? I don't have the school calendar.
This is December 23rd is the first day of the December break.
Okay.
So there's school on Monday the 21st and Tuesday the 22nd.
So yeah, and it'd only give you a week if we came back the 14th. Everybody'd be scrambling, then we'd be back into remote again after that. So I think running straight through would be the best bet, not popping in and out of models.
But as speaking with procedures, is Andy, you were saying that we're not, we're locked in until we revote, but the only people that can reopen that motion are the people that voted yes, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Is it the people who voted yes, or is it the person who made the motion and the person who seconded the motion is the only one who can ask for reconsideration?
No, it's anybody in the majority that wins the vote, I guess. In the majority that takes the question.
Thank you. This is April. Should we not reach any sort of action tonight and anything that we do propose fails, does that mean that our students would come back from the Thanksgiving break as hybrid?
I believe if no consensus has come to on anything else, then we would remain in the model that we're currently in, of course, with the caveat that the day-to-day closings would still happen as they have been. But yeah, if this motion were to fail, and there weren't any subsequent motions, then yes, I believe we would remain hybrid until such time as, well, I don't think we have a particular end date, so I don't know when our next meeting is, but I assume we would reconsider then. Is it on the bottom of the agenda like usual?
Thank you. The next meeting is December 1st.
Thank you. So yeah, I assume that we would be hybrid until at least that point. So, all right, I guess I will call the question then. So the proposal is to begin a full remote schedule on Monday, November 30th, and continue that with a return to the hybrid model on January the 19th. On a roll call vote, April.
No.
Ann?
No, I just feel the time is too long. Thank you.
Jean?
Yes.
And I'm yes. So that motion also fails. So currently we are staying as we are with hybrid. Is there any other discussion around the learning model right now? All right, then we will move on. I apologize. Patty, are you there? I can't see you on my little list of.
I am
faces.
still here.
I have a family thing that just popped up. I think at this point we have board reports and we have policy, but we do have a non-public. I can hang out for a few more minutes if I need to. Do you want to move non-public up, or I mean, you have a quorum without me. If Jean's comfortable taking over, I'm cool with that. If you'd rather we suspend, it's whatever you guys want to do. But I have to step out in the next 15 minutes or so.
I think we should move non-public up so Andy would be able to have a discussion.
This is April. I would support going into non-public before Andy needs to leave.
Okay. Thank you. I want to apologize to the public. There's a lot of you here. You certainly, if you hang out, we will bring you back after the non-public. This is out of the ordinary thing, but I do have to go. So we will.
Motion
If ever,
non-public.
Yeah, I do need a motion.
And I'll second.
Okay. On a roll call vote to go into non-public session at 8:33 p.m. April.
Yes.
Jean.
Yes.
Ann.
Yes.
And Andy's a yes. So if this is your, as I mentioned, I have to drop off. I wanted to ask, and I wanted to do this in public rather than non-public, just for transparency's sake. I wanted to ask my fellow board members, I guess, if I could ask them for a courtesy to not reconsider any questions that were asked tonight while I was here. Just in good faith, I think that there were motions in two different directions that were split the vote. I would just ask if we could keep those decisions until next time when hopefully we have a full board. Is that acceptable to everybody?
This is Ann, yes.
Thank you.
Andy, this is April. None of the motions passed that I believe you may be referring to, so there would actually be nothing to reconsider.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you all for being understanding on this and flexible. And I will talk to you all in a few weeks. Have a good night.
Good night.
Have fun, Jean.
Good night. So where were we? Are we ready to go again?
Time to shine, Jean. Board report.
Were we gonna do
Budget.
first? All right.
I can do it briefly if you want.
Okay.
So we weren't going to have changes for tonight. Amber had just started doing the second round after we got the health insurance rates in. But she was able to scramble very quickly and get some things done for Pembroke. So I told her that I would bring it, knowing that you obviously haven't had time to consider or look at it, but I could at least briefly go through the updates that she made. So she added the health insurance rates, and I will post all of this tomorrow too for the public so that they can see what the updates are. The final health rates were put in for the yellow plan, 6.4% and 7.2% for green and red. Those were added into the lines where applicable. Some transportation was revised in special ed based on student needs being updated. A position was changed that should have been a 50-50 split. Food service needed an additional transfer. And I think that was about it. Those are just the highlights. So Amber put them in yellow so you could see what she changed from the first presentation. And then before I forget, I also want to talk about your update for this year. So Amber ran the report this afternoon. So this report was run not reflecting a freeze. So I'll try to explain this. So your surplus right now is around $732,000. She held the funds, even though they're not allowed. I have frozen the budget, right? So everything has to come through me before it's purchased. If we were to say, okay, we're not spending any more money this year on the discretionary items, that would add to your surplus. So right now they're still being held, I guess is the best way to say it. So you have $732,000 surplus, and that's assuming that those things will be purchased this year that were approved in the budget. If you go forward and keep that, obviously we're still monitoring the budget and being careful, but if we do unfreeze it and allow the principals to order some of the things that are in this budget, we would be able to cut those things from the next year's budget. So when we did the budgeting, they aren't sure at this point, say I'll just use the 3D printer, and I don't know if this is a good example, but if they had a 3D printer in this budget and I have frozen it and they don't think they're going to get to buy it, they put it in for next year. So if we unfreeze and say, okay, we're in really good shape, we're comfortable this year, go ahead and buy the printer, we can cut the $1,500 out of the proposed budget. So it's a little bit confusing. I understand that. We're trying to do our best to balance the needs for both this year and next year. The principals and I are going to meet in a couple next week, maybe, to come up with that list of items, because I want to have a clear list so that you know what's in the budget for next year that's already in there for this year, and we can make those decisions as we go. You are, if you look at your calendar, time is flying and it's going to go by very quickly. You only have a couple of meetings before this budget has to go before the budget committee. So you need to consider the items in the CIP. You need to consider the warrant articles that you're going to put forward. You're going to need to consider on a pool of increases. So we typically put a pot of money in a line to give out raises for next year when the contracts are up. You have a lot of work to do. So I don't know if you want to dedicate, a meeting and just kind of get rid of all the extras in the agenda so that you can just focus on the budget. You really do have a lot of work to do. And I know all of this other stuff, the pandemic has taken up a lot of your time. So it's as much time as you can spend going through the budget. Amber can come, she can answer questions. You can get me questions ahead of time of things you're wondering about so that we can have them ready for the next meeting. However you want to proceed, but unfortunately we are getting into a little bit of a time crunch.
Patty, this is Ann. Is there any way that we can have a copy of that after you meet with the principals prior, as soon as you get done at that meeting and not at the beginning, December 1st?
Yes, if we can generate that list and get it done quickly, I can share it ahead of time.
Thank you.
Sure.
I did have Jean, I'm sorry, I have a question. Page 8, you said the aide salary is changed because it's a 50-50 split, but then page 16, it's also a position split. What's that mean?
Oh, Ann, I didn't have time to look at the budget to see what she means, but usually that means, she may have put the full salary in PA and it might have been a split position that should have been split between 2 schools instead of just one.
Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't sure what the split was. Thank you.
That would be my gut, but I haven't looked at it.
Thank you.
Jane, this is April. I have a question for you as our vice chair. Would you be willing to email a copy or ask our superintendent to email a copy of this to the chair of the budget committee? Just in the spirit of cooperation. This is something we've heard that they would like as soon as we get it so they can start reviewing it.
Yeah, is that doable, Patty?
Do you mean the current budget as it stands, April?
Yes, I mean the budget that was put in our drive today, so that they can keep track of that. That is a request that I've heard for a couple years, that they would like the opportunity to review.
And I'm almost positive Andy has already given them the first draft. So now that he's not here, I'll make sure they get this one too.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, they're meeting Thursday night and budget will be remote also.
Okay.
Any further discussions concerning the budget?
No, thank you.
I have a question regarding, are there any warrant articles that anyone believes should be on our radar for this year?
April, I remember Jerry saying that we should set up warrant articles for not just the warrant articles, but the funds for if we need to purchase vehicles. That was something that we don't have a fund for, but I'm not sure if he mentioned the amount that we should put, only because the vehicles we needed to purchase had to come out in 1 year.
Thank you. And is anyone aware when the deadline is that we need to have those warrant articles ready to roll?
They don't have to be in the first budget committee meeting, although we do try respectfully to get them to them as quickly as possible in January typically. And Josh usually comes with a list for the board to consider. He takes it from his capital improvement plan of the money that he has projected to set aside each year so that we can meet those deadlines for projects. And at that time, the board considers whether or not they want to support them or maybe put them off a year. So we usually present that to you for consideration unless someone on the board proposes something that they'd like to add.
This is April again. Does anyone have any knowledge of when the budget books are printed, the deadline for the printing? Because I think it's important to have all of our stuff ready to go to the printer so we can make sure it's in the public's hands.
We do our own copies for the MBC. Kathy makes the binders and numbers all the pages. So there will be a spot to put the warrant articles in. And I believe we're getting our budget to them. Let me just look at my calendar quickly, but it's usually right before Christmas break. That Thursday is when we've typically done it. So that would be the 17th. And then Kathy would obviously need a chunk of time to copy them ahead of that.
Thank you. What I'm curious is that thick book that we get when we go to the school district meeting, and it generally has the school district's budget information and the town's budget information.
Oh,
I'm not sure if that's printed by the town or the district, or that's a co-printing where we contribute to the printing costs.
Yeah, the town sends that out to be printed. And yes, I can't remember what the deadline is, but we do want to try to get everything in for that. I misunderstood the printing that you were talking about.
Okay, could we find out what that deadline is? Because I think it's important that we try to meet that, to include everything that we can in that big binder. Otherwise, loose papers get lost as you're shuffling around.
Yes,
Thank you.
I will. I'll have Kathy reach out to them.
Thank you very much.
Was muted. I believe that for the town, the booklet that goes out for town meeting generally comes out after everything's put into it, after the public hearing in February, when everything's finalized.
Correct. And also the, there's no fee for the school for printing because the town pays for the printing of it because the school lets us use their building when it's needed.
Any more questions on budget?
This is April. Just thinking about budget and also the booklet that is handed out at the townwide school district meeting. Are there other documents that may mirror something to what the town puts out that we may consider putting forth? Just, I don't need an answer now, but just food for thought.
Jean, I did have one other question. When Amber was going over the budget on November 5th, she mentioned new positions, and I didn't write it down quick enough. Patty, do you have that information, what new positions we're adding?
I didn't think we did any new positions. Do you mind if I ask the principals to share if they know of any?
Oh, thank you.
Dan, Wendy, John, did you add anything? I didn't think we did.
Three Rivers did not add anybody.
We are not adding anybody.
I think Dan's frozen.
Just back. Sorry about that.
Dan, you didn't add any new positions, did you, at PA?
No, I did not.
I wasn't at the meeting, Anne, but I'm wondering if she was talking about the math position that didn't get filled, maybe?
I'm not sure, but thank you for checking.
Sure.
It will come up at our next one.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so next is board reports, 4B. SAU board, SAU executive board reports. Ann, anything?
The executive board meeting for November 10th was canceled. They do not have anything set going forward.
Okay.
I'll do the area committee meeting. We did have a meeting right after our discussion. We did meet on the 10th. They wanted to discuss what Pembroke Academy or what Pembroke is doing with Pembroke Academy. Everyone there except one person wants the Pembroke School Board to make a decision differently about hybrid or remote. They want it different for the high school than we would do for Three Rivers or Hill. And they, majority of them, except one person, wants them to at least go hybrid. And they did not put a time or a date for our next meeting.
All right. So budget committee report. Andy's not here, and I'm not sure if there had been a meeting. I was not present at it, so I've got nothing to report.
Jean, there hasn't been. The last budget meeting, they were handing out the schedule, the dates of the meetings and the hearing. And they do have one on Thursday at 6:30, and it's remote. Right. That's basically, it's just the town budget.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I had attended the PACE meeting, which was last night, actually. Pace is currently at 67 students. 29 are from the SAU 53. The remainder are from outside SAUs, Concord being the largest. I think they have 15 students coming in. Their capacity is 80, so they're a little bit short of that at this point in time, looking to move that way. They're also offering courses, which I hadn't known before. They're offering dual credit courses with NHTI, Manchester Community College, and also SNHU. The one thing that stood out to me was that SAU 53, the 29 students that go to Pace Academy, I believe, Patty, the total, I don't have the budget open right now, but it was around $12,000 a student, 70, something like that.
That sounds about right.
And I believe, what, 7,200 of it is adequacy aid from the state, and we pay the remainder.
No, we get just under 4,000 for adequacy.
Okay, so 3,600 on that. But the sticking point is the other sending districts are not paying anything toward the education of students that are at Pace. So one thing that I did volunteer to do with Jorge Santana, the director at Pace, was to start working on a way to get those outside districts to pay their fair share. Basically, the state pays adequacy aid to Pace. Those other districts send their students with no additional cost except for Bow. Bow's the only one that makes up the difference between the adequacy and the actual tuition. So the RSA states that a school district must pay 80% of the education to send a student to a district charter school. And these others, the way they're interpreting the law basically says that they don't have to pay anything. They can just send their kids, they lose their adequacy aid to Pace, but that's it. They don't pay any remainder, and they're saving a lot of money on that. So it's something I'm going to be working on, and possibly with Amy, if she agrees to try to rectify that situation. Might be a long road, but that's that. Next meeting is February 15th.
Jean, I just have a question. Clint Hansen has always said that is what's been happening for years.
Yep.
So is that still continuing there? They don't have any drive to pay that portion?
It's the way the law, the RSA is interpreted. So because it's, it kind of sounded like because it's not their just charter school that they don't have to, but it's ours, and that's the way that I think they're interpreting it. But the law doesn't really differentiate as to whose it has to be, and it's left it wide open. So if you interpret it one way, I guess you could get away with sending your kid to school, to somebody else's school and let them foot the bill. But that does burden the whole SAU for paying that difference, because they do have an operating budget and they set a tuition, and as the population increases at the school, that the operating costs increase, therefore the portion that tuition will go up, and we get left basically holding the bag on that.
Thank you, Jean, because I was going to ask how they're staying afloat if we're the only district that's paying.
Yeah,
but
well, they do a lot of fundraising, and they do have a good amount of cash on hand too, a surplus at this point. So I mean, they obviously operate differently than our schools do, but the donations, a lot of volunteer work to get things done. and then the adequacy aid plus the tuitions that are paid. So.
Thank you, Jean. Just one quick question. Are they having any problem? I know you're saying they only have 67 students. Are they having any problem with social distance? I know they're in a warehouse. Well, excuse me. We've remodified warehouse.
Yeah, they seem to be doing okay with that. I want to say, I think 42% of their students are remote, so it makes it a little easier for them to distance in that space.
All right, thank you.
Jean, this is April. I'm hoping you can shed a little light on why the thought is that other sending school districts must pay the remaining percentage. I am aware that PACE is the only locally authorized charter school in the state. And does Pembroke School District authorizing that charter school have anything to do with that expecting other districts to pay outside of the adequacy aid? Because I am aware that other charter schools do not have that expectation of the sending districts.
Yeah, well, it's not just Pembroke. It's SAU 53. PACE stands for Pembroke, Allenstown, Chichester, and Epsom. So basically, we authorized the charter school. It's the only one in the state, and the way the RSA is written, I don't have the number in front of me. I tried running it down last night and didn't get anywhere with that. Anyway, the wording of the law is that any district authorized charter school, the districts have to pay 80% of that tuition, or 80% of after adequacy or something like that. It's only my second meeting there, so I'm trying to figure things out. But there is let's say Pembroke sends 10 kids there at 12,000 tuition. The adequacy aid takes care of a portion of that, and I think we're responsible for 80% of the remainder. And the other districts that use an authorized charter school aren't doing any of that. They get the adequacy aid from the state to educate that kid, and that's it. So basically the concern is the operating cost is getting pushed back onto the towns that authorize the school, SAU 53. So that's what I'm saying about the cost going up. So something needs to be done to address the cost. Essentially Concord's sending their students to PACE for free, and they lose the adequacy aid that they would normally get for that student, but that's it. And let's say outside of adequacy, it's $16,000 a year to educate a kid, so they lose $3,600, but they save another 12 grand. So it almost is. It's kind of underhanded, I believe, and I think the law has to be looked at and reinterpreted so everybody pays their fair share.
This is April again. Jean, did you happen to make a note of what the RSA was? I'd like to jot that down and take a look if you didn't.
And that's as far as I got.
Okay, no problem. The other thing is, could you tell me more about the other districts? Because I'm looking on the DOE's website, and the charter for PACE was actually submitted by Pembroke School District. So I don't see the other school districts listed on here. I'm just curious what you're hearing there. I'm not trying to, are you hearing something different?
I don't know outside of that. Patty, can you help?
Thank you.
Yes, so we have two agreements. We have an SAU agreement and a Pembroke agreement. And the other district's interpretation, just if I can help a little bit, with the district sponsored, it's like Jean said, it doesn't say if it's your district that sponsored it or any district that sponsored it. But do you want to just clarify that Pembroke doesn't pick up the cost for anyone else? Our rate is set at 80% of our tuition. So if the other schools don't pay, it just means that PACE doesn't get the funding and they have to come up with it in some other way.
Could I get more information about the agreement? Is that a memorandum of understanding? And can you give us more background on when our district signed and what was the duration of that agreement?
We just renewed it within the past couple of years, and I can put both of the agreements in the drive if you'd like to look at them.
That would be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yep.
I do have to correct one thing. Out of the 67 students, 23 were remote. I was remembering a different number. So about a third.
Thank you, Jean.
All right, so if we're done with that, we can move on to Hill Renovation Committee report. Kevin Foss, are you still on?
I am. I have nothing new to give you since I spoke to you last. We didn't meet last week because the buildings were closed for Veterans Day. We will be meeting tomorrow night at 6 at Hill. And that's all I have for you on that. I do just want to say that in case you can't see my hand raised, I do have a public comment when you get to that portion of the agenda.
I'm sure you won't let it slide. All right, thank you, Kevin. And now on to principals' reports. Now, I know Andy chooses one, but who wants to go first? Don't all jump up. I'll go with...
I'll go.
All right, yeah.
I'll get it over with. First of all, Ian, thank you for coming the other day. We had a nice chat and we walked through the building. So thank you for coming. Hope you got to see a few things. There's not a lot to report from last time. We are getting ready to do progress reports, and we're also trying to figure out conferences and how those will be go. They will obviously be remote of some sort. Most likely, we'll be just asking parents to ask if they want to talk to teachers. It won't be anything as formal as we've had in the past. It's just quite a process, obviously, to talk about conferences in any way. So we'll be coming up with that. And like I said, progress reports are coming. Other than that, we've been dealing with COVID like everybody else.
Thank you, John.
I'll jump in next. So more of the normal, the typical school year stuff. Our picture retakes are coming up. I know that was a question people were asking on December 1st and 2nd. Let's see. Remote learning, I think the last week and a half taught us a lot. I'm beyond proud of everybody and how well they handled it. We got, quite a bit of positive feedback as far as what the remote sessions looked like. And I think people did see the increased rigor in if we had that full remote setting. Just one of the challenges we're facing is our full remote is currently full. We have a wait list of about 7 students. But at this point, if anyone asked to go full remote, would not have the ability to offer that. They would have to go on a growing wait list. So that's just one of the challenges that we're looking at moving forward. But other than that, it's pretty much the same thing. Our parent conferences are coming up. Those dates are hopefully going to go out to everybody tomorrow. We're going to do them virtually as well. We are going to have a chance for parents to sign up for 15-minute increments. And all of that information, like I said, will be going out hopefully tomorrow. And it was just great to have our kiddos back in to see them today. They were noticeably sleepy. So it was a little bit of a, getting them back into the groove of it. But other than that, it was great to see their faces today.
Thanks, Wendy. Yeah.
I don't really have much to add other than what we've discussed earlier today regarding both athletics and the condition of the building and our staff and students. So I'll just leave it at that. I really don't have anything else to say other than we are, trying to be as communicative as possible. That's becoming harder and harder as we continue to have more and more cases. It seems like I'm sending a one call now out just about every day at this point. I think on Thursday I sent out 3. So we're just trying to be as transparent as possible with that. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving forward.
Andy, excuse me, Jean, this is April.
I'm sorry, geez. Does anybody have any questions for the principals?
Yes, I have a question. Something we've been hearing about the remote is this fluctuation that may be happening, and I'm a little concerned about that. I know this board had a discussion pretty early on this academic year about what we would like to see, and it sounded like what was supported as well as administrative is having families commit to a period of time to doing remote. I know in a past meeting we've heard about how remote can kind of be a revolving door. I'm curious how that is going and what is in place to make sure that people who are doing remote are kind of signed up for a duration so that there's adequate planning and prep and for our teachers to establish relationships with the students.
It is a revolving door, and that door continues to get bigger as we have more and more people go on quarantine. They still need to access their education, so they need to do that through remote learning. And as we have more and more cases, we have more and more people requesting remote learning on a full-time status. And we do reserve the right to refuse that unless they cite medical reasons. And they cite medical reasons, and we allow them to do remote because it's in their estimation or their doctors that it's unsafe to be in the building. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean, I have a follow-up, please, if possible. Just clarifying, if a student is out of school due to quarantine, is that student provided with some sort of schoolwork during that time period, or are they expected to just be marked as absent? I don't know if that differs per school or per grade or per class. I'm just curious to find out more about that.
At Pembroke Academy, they access their classes remotely when they are on quarantine.
The same is true at Three Rivers, April. We do have a class that they jump in on for when they're quarantined.
Thank you.
For us, it's different. They don't have the ability to jump into the remote class. A remote class is a class in and of itself. So they can't just hop in, and our classes at that point, like I said, are capped. We do push out asynchronous work, and they do touch base with their teachers live on Mondays during their learning labs.
Thank you very much.
Jean, this is Ann. I want to say thank you to Dr. Morris and Mr. Marson for taking the time on Tuesday to go over and, tour the school and the classes. And, our kids are doing great. They're all wearing their mask. I didn't see anybody uncomfortable with it. The social distance, they were all on top of it. I do appreciate the time. And also for Hill, I wasn't able to because you were remote that day, but I would like to get on your calendar also. Thank you.
Is that all for the principals? Well, thank you all. And now we can move on, right? To policy review.
So the outstanding policy that you had for action at this meeting was the home education instruction policy.
Jean, this is April. Is it possible that we could have a conversation about this policy IHBG without a motion on the floor?
Yeah, I don't see why not, but as long as we keep it brief.
Sure. So I'm a little concerned, first off, because in opening this drive, I saw that there was a modified policy that was added today, which means that none of us had an an opportunity to look at it. It's actually marked with edits by a staff member. And typically when there's edits to a policy, it's color coded or somehow denoted so we know what those edits are. I did not see that in here. So I personally do not feel comfortable moving forward on the IHBG, home education instruction and access to curricular and co-curricular programs that is in our drive. I do have some information which I would like to share with all of our school board members. I reached out to several members of the Home Education Advisory Council that's formed under NHRSA 193-A:10. Their next meeting is, several of them did provide some feedback. Overall, they were very pleased to hear that Pembroke School District was taking up this policy review. So that was really good feedback, and we were really applauded for that. They are going to have a public meeting on Thursday, November 19th, and they will be, my understanding, one member told me that they may be discussing, they'd like to work with the New Hampshire School Board Association to possibly suggest some edits to the policy. And I'd like to leave it at that unless you guys want to hear more. But I do have more information, but I would prefer to wait till the full board is here in order to digest that information and share it. Thank you.
Would that be okay, Patty?
Sure. I mean, I think, like April said, everyone's aware that we're addressing the policy. I'm just wondering, though, when I look in my drive, I see that the edits were made on October 6th. And I think it was just copying language that was in your original policy and inserting it into School Board Association. So if you got something different.
Yes, I don't want to say the staff, I want to be respectful and not mention the staff member's name that's in that edit. But when I went in there, it did say modified on 11/16, and I did not see it color coded, which you guys are usually really good at doing that for us. Could we possibly have that color coded? Because I would love to see the input that that the staff member had for us.
April, do you mind emailing me tomorrow? Because what I'm opening in the drive is color coded and it says it was modified on October 6th. So if you email me tomorrow, then I will make sure you have what you should have. And I apologize for that misunderstanding.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
All right. So I don't know if there's any feeling to take any action in any other policies, one way or the other, first and second readings.
Jean, this is April. I would like to table the policies for tonight. I'd make a motion that we table the policy review for tonight.
Is there a second?
I'll second, because we are missing a couple of our board mates.
Fair enough. Any more discussion on it? Hearing none, take a roll call vote. April?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And I'll be yes also. All right. So, number 6, informational items.
I had one update about the additional grant funds that we were awarded for $200 per student. We needed to look into that a little bit more, and I do have an answer. When we got our allocation, we thought it seemed low for our student count, and when we looked into it, we discovered that the state awarded the $200 per student based on residency. So unfortunately, all of the students, the AREA students at Pembroke Academy, we did not get any grant funds for those students that went to their home districts. So all of the Allenstown students at Pembroke Academy, that funding went to Allenstown and not to Pembroke Academy. So unfortunately, our grant funding was less than we had originally thought it was going to be, but we are working on allocating those funds to make sure that they're expended by the end of December.
Excellent. All right. So, second session for public comments. And I'll let you guys, Dan, are you doing that?
Yeah, I don't see any hands at the moment, but I do know that Kevin wanted to say something.
Jean, this is April. Would you be willing to be our timekeeper for our public comment session?
Yep, I got
Thank
it.
you.
So are you starting with me, guys?
You got it.
All right, thank you. Boy, I'm really trying to collect my thoughts here because I got to be honest, my jaw is on the floor hearing this conversation this evening. Time and time again, in the face of the facts, in face of the opinions of your professionals, this board shows its disdain and distrust for our school employees and students. A number of words come to mind, most of them not appropriate, but the biggest one that I feel I can say is disgusting. Miss Bond and Miss Villani should resign, and they should resign tonight. It is clear that they are not interested in serving the best needs of our students and our staff. And I really think this board needs to demand that they stop immediately referencing anonymous taxpayers who have reached out to them. If taxpayers have something to say, they know how to communicate that to the board and to the public, and anything that is sent outside of public comment to these board members that they wish to reference needs to be read into the record and who is saying it, and it needs to be provided to Sandy for the public record of this meeting. It is disgusting. Resign and resign tonight. Thank you.
Next we have Melanie Camillo.
Go ahead, Melanie.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. I would just like to take this time to urge the board to possibly consider having another meeting regarding going remote from November 30th through Martin Luther King Day, maybe next Tuesday, if possible, before the Thanksgiving holiday, where the full board could hopefully be present to discuss this further. It would allow for another 7 days of trending data to be available to make informed decisions. This could also allow our teachers and administrators more time to plan an appropriate and enriched remote learning opportunity for all students. Bouncing back and forth between models is not conducive learning environment for anybody. Respectfully, nobody on the school board is in the medical field. Your frontline workers in infection control during this pandemic are your school nurses. They have made it quite clear from the last school board meeting and tonight that the health and safety of all the staff and students is their #1 priority. They are asking for a proactive approach to ensure the safety and health of our community. I have a hard time understanding how the board couldn't heed the advice of the school nurses and vote to go remote after Thanksgiving, when even my nursing school has moved us to remote learning as of November 30th through Martin Luther King Day. And we have been trained in proper infection control practices and how to appropriately don and doff our PPE. This concerns me. I also want to say thank you to our administration and especially thank you to our school nurses for doing everything in your power to keep our school community safe. Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie.
Next we have Brian G.
Thank you. It's Brian Leighton from Pembroke, New Hampshire. First off, I couldn't disagree more with Mr. Foss's assertion of what had happened here tonight. I applaud Ms. Villani and Ms. Bond for standing their ground and filling us in with their information. Secondly, I am shocked and appalled that this administration, when comparing Pembroke to surrounding towns, blames families and community members for the space that we are in. That a member of this school board will scold the community like a puppy that had an accident in the house, quote unquote, you people are the reason we are where we are. Please understand, I and others who are continually asking to return to school are not doing so for a daycare. We're doing so because this administration and board have continually failed us and more importantly, failed the children. I understand teachers, aides, and nurses are working hard and working extra hours. We all are. I and many others like me have been at this desk since 6:30 this morning with more work that needs to be accomplished after this meeting concludes. Hybrid learning has been ineffective, inadequate, and a Band-Aid. And once again, there was no discussion on how to improve the educational experience and social enrichment our children need. Here we sit again, no tangible plan other than wait and see, the same space we've been since March. And just like members of this board and this administration are labeling families in the community as liars, for lack of a better term, I and others within this community are labeling this board and this administration as failures once again. Thank you.
Okay, that's it for the hands that are raised. I think you're on mute, Gene. Gene, I think you're still on mute. There you go.
Dan, is if there's anyone that has their hand raised that's online that we haven't called on, speak up now, please. All right, so we'll go to the phone callers. I believe you have to hit *6 if you want to speak. Is there anyone there that would like to speak? All right, with that, I think we'll close the public comments. And
Jane, this is April. Could we just give it a couple of minutes? We did have problems with people's hands not being seen earlier today. Do you mind giving it maybe 2 minutes to see if anyone speaks up? Thank you.
Yep.
We have Mark Dumont.
Hi, Mark Dumont, Donna Drive. I got 3 kids in the Pembroke school system, 1 at TRS and 2 at Hill. I'd like to thank Ann and April for sticking up for the parents, because we know the majority of the parents want the schools open. And I'd like to thank them for speaking out for the taxpayers. I'm one of those taxpayers. I've had to share some personal stories with them, which they have shared. For instance, I was running out of resources for our kids who attend Boys and Girls Club. So I don't know how we're going to be able to get them to participate in remote if we don't have an adult there to help them. I think it's disgusting for other residents to think there's a problem with people emailing their board members and letting them know what's going on and how their family's being hurt by the decisions with the board. I'd like to thank Ann and April for putting low income families first instead of last, like the other 3 board members. It seems to be a problem between the haves and the have-nots. The people that can afford to keep their kids home, you can keep your kids home and you can feel safe all you want, but you shouldn't get in the way of everyone else attending school. At this point, you're destroying the children's educations. So people need to allow other families to choose what's best for themselves. We need to designate teachers as essential workers so they don't need to quarantine for 2 weeks after traveling. That's the first thing. We need to start advertising for substitute teachers instead of saying we need them, because we're not advertising for them. We know that. I'm asking the SAU to start doing the job. I'm going to ask the other 3 school board members who want to close this down for remote to do their job and open the schools. Right now, you're not offering an adequate education for my children. Right now, it's based on income status, because you need to either be able to work at home or afford to have an adult at home for your children. There's families not being able to participate in remote, and the children are losing their educations. There's no excuse for this. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Mark.
Mr. Chairman.
Hello, are you still taking calls?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, it's Lauren Dwyer, 4th Range Road. I just want to thank all of you so much. The entire board, our staff, our incredible nurses, and I appreciate that I feel like I can contact my board. I feel like I can contact everyone on the board, and I really enjoy being able to do that. I'm not always comfortable sharing my stories in a public setting. So I really appreciate the time that all of you take to speak with us that live here. I also, I would like to encourage our community to be kinder to each other. Hearing a lot of verbiage, this is disgusting, this board member is disgusting, that board member is disgusting. It's just, I don't feel that's the spirit that we need right now. Also, I know COVID is hard. I just want to make a note that those of us that are choosing this remote option, we're making sacrifices too, and nobody's happy with this. The people that are using the hybrid option, they're not happy. Us doing remote, we're not happy. Nobody's happy. And we've got to just pull it together. We have to be better, do better. And I just want to say thank you. And please continue these discussions with how to educate our kiddos the best way that you possibly can under the circumstances and keep our health and safety in mind as well. Just thank you all so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lauren. We have Kim Pratt's hand raised.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to say I am not a taxpayer, but I have spent about 20 years teaching the children in Pembroke and have loved it. I want to say I really appreciate the last caller's call for civility when Mr. Dumont or Mr. Gleaton or Mr. whoever come on and bash people who are giving up their time, their evenings, their days to support the education of children in their town. I just think you don't deserve that, school board, and I really feel sad that people are turning against you. I think they need to turn away from their computers for a day and really look at the world and what's happening in the world and understand that this pandemic is not just happening to them. It is not the school being mean to their children. We're all trying to make the best choices we can for each other and be safe for each other. I think to look at the nurses and look at all the work that they're doing and to know the stresses that they must be going through and to not be offering to get them assistance is turning a blind eye to the reality of the situation. It is a pandemic. It is something we've never faced before. And I think we need to pull together as a community to figure out how we can get through it. Teachers are ready. We're an army ready to serve the children, and we're ready to make best do what we can. But I think we all need to pull together. So that's all I had to say. Wish you good night.
Thank you, Kim.
We have Tim Girardi is next with his hand raised. Okay. Go ahead, Tim.
Hi, everyone. I just want to comment on what I'm hearing right now. And look, as we get deeper into this issue of remote, hybrid, in classroom, things are going to get a lot more heated in the community. We do need to be civil. We do need to be respectful of each other. But what I would say is the board and the administration, once again in my comments, have got to come to us with a plan. We're taxpayers. We're not getting the service that we need from the town. I would say from what I've heard over the past several months, it's probably fairly even split. I would venture to guess probably tilting more towards getting the kids back into school than not. I would say choice is probably more the request than not from the parents in Pembroke. And we need the board and administration to hear us, period. We're not going to go away. We're going to attend every single meeting and preach the same message until we get what we need. I'd ask that, everybody continue just to be respectful, and let's have open dialogue and debate. And where there's accountability, the citizens of the town need to hold the board as the governing body accountable if we're not getting the services that we're paying for. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. John Harrington is next with his hand raised.
Good evening.
Good evening. I just wanted to say thank you to the board for taking my call. I do believe we need to be civil. I also think we need to live in reality. The reality is that people are passing away. And maybe these people, maybe we do need to go fully back. Let the disease take its course. Let them start to kill their loved ones. And then we'll see how they feel about all of this COVID not happening. Maybe the board does need to just throw it in because no one's listening. The superintendent told you that you should go remote. The teachers told you should go remote. The principals told you should go remote. The nurses tell you should go remote. Other towns are going remote. The overwhelming evidence is we should be remote for the safety of the children and the people. We don't get what we want. We don't always get what we need, but we will come to an understanding. I hope that the board agrees with this, because we have to act as adults, and we have to act as if the safety of the community is worthwhile. And I'm very frustrated tonight because of listening to these, these internet trolls and these Facebook trolls, and everybody wants to be civil, but you can't be civil with people who are already made up their mind and they don't want to work with anybody else. So I urge the board to please just go remote. Thanks.
Thank you.
Gene, I think that's it for hands.
Give it a few more seconds. Anybody else wants to comment? All right. I think that's done. I want to thank everybody for their comments. Move along on the agenda to number 8. Patty, are we good with non-public?
All set, thank you.
All right. And no appointments, resignations, or retirements?
Nope.
So at this point, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
This is Ann. I make a motion to adjourn.
This is April, a second.
Hey, April, any discussion on it, or are we just going to adjourn?
I thought I'm just seconding the motion.
Right.
Well, the one thing before, I do have a question. I don't know if we can go back. Can we just get an update? I'm not sure if it was said where our current budget is for the current year. Can we get that number?
I believe the surplus currently stands at $732,000. I'm sorry. And the budget is in a freeze per Patty.
Thank you.
Gene, we also, Amy usually asks us to announce our next meeting.
All right.
December 1.
December 1. Yep. Next school board meeting will be December 1st at 6:30. Same place.
Same time.
And that's it. All right. On a roll call vote to adjourn, Ann?
Yes.
I think that was a yes, Ann.
Sorry, yes.
April?
Yes.
And we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Jean, did you vote?
December 1st.
Jean, this is April. Did you vote? I didn't hear your vote.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Have a great night, everyone.